Today, I'm honored to welcome Dr. Aimie Apigain, a physician, speaker, and leading voice in the field of trauma healing. She is the author of this fabulous, and I've got to say fabulous, I'm so inspired by this book called The Biology of Trauma: How the Body Holds Fear, Pain, Overwhelm, and How to Heal It. So often we think of trauma as an event of the past, something that only lives in our memories. But Dr. Aimie shows us that trauma is not just a story in our minds, it's an imprint in our biology. Think about that, an imprint in our biology. Our bodies carry fear, pain, and overwhelm in ways that are far more wiser than we often realize. The body is always trying to protect us and always sending us signals, and often knows the truth long before our minds do. Long before our minds do. I've had this happen so many times in my life. Through her work, Dr. Aimie helps us to see the body not as a problem to be fixed, but as a guide that can lead us to safety, regulation, and healing. I'm so thrilled to have you on, Dr. Aimie.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. And thank you for the work that you do in the world. So needed.
Thank you so much. So before we get started today, I'd love to ask our folks that are online with us a question. So if you would put the answer in the chat. Have you ever noticed how your body reacts before your mind does? Like a knot in your stomach, a racing heart, or something more significant? And wondered, what is the wisdom your body is trying to share with you? So have you ever had that experience? I've had that so many times in my life, and I'll just say, yes, 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 I have. How about you out there in the world? Let's see. For sure. Yes. And the question is, and that we're going to be talking about, is do you listen and what can you do about it? But first of all, Dr. Aimie, thank you again so much for writing this book. It's an amazing resource for people with trauma. We all have some type of trauma in our lives. But how did you initially connect trauma with the internal workings of the body?
It was a process for me. I didn't wake up one day and be like, trauma's in the body. It actually started when I became a foster parent. And as I took in 2 foster children and then adopted Miguel, the one that they had placed with me first, I saw that he was still living as if he were in the past. Even though he had a different environment, he had a different mom, everything else was different, but not him. And inside, he was still convinced that something bad was going to happen, that people are going to abandon him, and he was going to be left all alone. So I realized that trauma really stays with a person, even though we can think that we've moved on, though we want to move on, and even though we don't like what we're doing, it still somehow takes its hold. And that's what makes it a trauma and not just a stress that we went through.
Well, it's so interesting to me that you were a surgeon before you came to this topic of trauma. So can you just tell us a little bit about your history? And because you do have a medical background, and a lot of people are not looking at trauma from an internal system. So talk about your journey a little bit.
Yes. So I was a general surgery resident. I did 4 years. In fact, I did those in Portland, Oregon, for those here who are from Portland. And coming out of medical school, this was what the plan was. The plan was to be a physician, do the conventional medical route. That's all I knew. And it really started to open my eyes as I was going home to a child who was very afraid to let me love him and was pushing me away. And then to be able to see some of these emotional patterns showing up in myself and my patients, not to the same degree, of course, but I started to see patterns. And as I started to learn more about the body by doing surgery, I realized that every tissue has its breaking point. So does every person. Every person has their breaking point. And I got to see what happens as a person crosses that line. what the body does to fight to stay alive, things that would not seem logical, but the body is so innately designed to help us survive even the unsurvivable. And taking someone through surgery is very much like doing trauma work, actually. Because if there's an abscess or an appendicitis, the gallbladder needs to come out, I need to open that person up to take it out. Isn't that like our trauma that we've packed? We
Absolutely.
need to open up. But yet, so many people don't know how to do it safely. And so they're trying to do it without anesthesia. And that's why we have anesthesiologists in surgery. It allows the stabilization of the system for us to safely take it out. And that's really what I wanted to communicate with this book, was that there is a way for us to follow the science so that we can be opening these things up that we need to. We know we need to, but there's a way to do it safely so that we don't relive the same experiences that we went through in the past.
So I think this is so interesting and leads perfectly into my next question. So how is your concept of the biology of trauma so different? With your background and with this knowledge that you now have, lived experience and all of the research you've done, how is it so different?
Many people will think of trauma as an emotional experience, has a psychological effect, messes with your mind. But how I see it as a physician is the impact that it's having on our cells at the DNA level. And there are 5 distinct physiological steps that are progressive. And if we progress through all of those physiological steps, that is a trauma for our body. And as I studied this, I saw that that means that there's a clear difference between a stress response and a trauma response. And what I had always done, and I hear many people still doing this, is say, oh, stress is bad. Chronic stress and toxic stress and stress is bad. And yet, as we look at the physiology, we see that actually stress is like lifting weights. It makes us stronger. It's when our tissues have crossed the line. And I share a story of a patient, Kenneth, and he came in and had broken his muscle from lifting too heavy of weights. And that's what trauma does to us. Trauma is like that weight coming down on us and crushing us. And so
I think that's, yeah. And I think that definition between stress and trauma is so important because trauma goes far deeper and, into our childhood, back into our childhood, than say something that's stressful right now in our lives. So we talked a little bit before we got on, and I think that this is such an important question because it's like, how do we know if we have trauma? It's so rare that we give ourselves the gift of, the ability to look at ourselves, to look, be introspective. And it's like, oh, I'm triggered on something. Did that come from a piece of trauma that I had early on? So how do we begin to identify what is going on if you haven't been diagnosed with trauma?
Yeah. I know that you have a guide, the steps to identify and heal trauma. And there's an assessment that I put in there. And you were telling me that as you were going through the assessment, you were like, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? So she has this wonderful guide. It's called A Roadmap for Healing. It's free on her website, which we'll put in the chat. But there's this quiz to identify trauma. And so it's got general relationships, coping mechanisms. And I have to say that I had something in every single section. So I think I've had some trauma in my life. So continue. I'm sorry.
No,
But I just think this is a great resource.
Yes. And I'm curious, as you were answering those questions, were these ones that you would normally have assumed like, oh, this is related to trauma?
No, I mean, I'm constantly overwhelmed because I've got a lot going on. I tend to avoid conflict. I don't really care for it. Emotional eating has always been a thing since I was a little girl. And so that really stood out to me because I still do it. So let's just leave it there. Oh, and
Yeah,
bloating. I bloat all the time.
right.
Yeah.
And how many people have also been challenged with those, and they don't connect that with
No,
my body's holding trauma. We
no, I
see
did
these
not.
as habits or flaws that we need to work on. We're not saying, oh, this is a trauma pattern that's showing up in my life, and what's really underneath the surface. And so, what I hope to bring to people is different ways to recognize stored trauma than what they would normally think of. They might normally think of, well, you must be overreactive. Well, you must be always anxious. You must be hypervigilant. You must startle. And maybe not, because there are many ways in which trauma shows up in the body when it's become chronic. And that's a key difference for people to understand. There's an acute trauma response, and then there's something that's just become chronic because it's lingered, and our body never had the reset to safety that it needed back at that original event. And so our body is stuck in these steps, and it loops between stress and overwhelm, stress and overwhelm. And so then these patterns develop over time. So the questions really help a person start thinking, oh, these are things that represent my nervous system is uncomfortable. My nervous system is trying to find relief from background fear and insecurity or just uncomfortableness. And this is how it knows to do that. And it's a way for us to recognize our body's holding trauma, and we may have never even known it.
And, and this dis-ease in our body can equal disease. And I think that's something that we also don't talk about as a society, and that you're bringing to the forefront of conversation is that we need to heal from the inside out so that we're not holding on to these energies that may keep us sick, for a couple of days or a couple of years or longer, right?
So a few of those things of dis-ease, right? When we check out during dinner, we're there physically, but we're somewhere else mentally. Or when we overeat when we're not hungry, when we have a hard time expressing affection or receiving compliments, or we people please. These are all ways in which we can see this dis-ease. It's not just our physical health, but when our body's holding trauma, these are the natural downstream effects. And it's what I was able to see as a physician because I'm trained to see patterns. So when I see the same pattern of disconnection in your relationships as well as in your physical health, I'm seeing the same pattern, which tells me there's a single root cause.
Fascinating. Think about that, you guys. So let's have you walk us through your program called the 5 Steps of the Body's Trauma Response. And can you explain how each of these steps works? So the first one is the startle, which is an inner state of hypervigilance.
Yes, and this is the science. So this is not science that I created or came up with. This is the universal trauma response of the body. It's instinctual, which means that we are programmed to do this even from the moment we are born. It's how our nervous system is designed so that we may need to engage this response when we are born. We may be born with the cord wrapped around our neck. We may be born premature. And our nervous system is already designed because this is instinctual. We don't need to have a mature, logical brain to have this survival response kick in. So the 5 steps, it does start with the startle. And the startle is the smoke alarm. It's the first moment that we sense that something might be wrong. The next step is the stress. This is when our body floods with adrenaline and we become that superhuman. We have the strongest muscles that we will ever have. We have the highest energy that we will ever have. And we are moved to take action. But then something happens. And I call this the wall. The wall is when we realize, I can't overcome this. I don't have enough. I'm not enough. And it's this moment where we become powerless, meaning there's nothing I can do that will make a difference. There's nothing I can do that will make this bad thing stop, whatever that bad thing is. Maybe it's a bad thing happening to me. Maybe it's a bad thing happening to you, and I'm having to watch something bad happen to you, and I can't stop it. Either way, the wall is the wall. And it's that moment of, there's nothing I can do. When that happens, our physiology makes a drastic change. And it goes from that high energy and action of the stress to a freeze moment, a moment of paralysis. It's the moment of shock, the shock that we've hit the wall, the shock that I can't believe what is happening. This is not the way that life is supposed to go. And then our body goes into the final fifth step, which is the shutdown. And the shutdown is like a dimming of all the lights in our body. Some people, their lights dim so much that they do faint or they lose consciousness. For some, they have this out of body experience where they feel like they're watching what's happening. For others, it's not as dramatic. It's just this sense of disorientation, brain fog. But the important difference is that we are now not moving. We are now in a state of heaviness. We are now in a state of low energy because at the cellular level, our body has said, it's not a good idea to keep using up my energy. Now the best strategy for me to survive is to save or conserve my energy. So our breath goes slow and shallow. In fact, I've had to tell many people, can you take a breath for me? Because I'm not seeing even your chest move with your breath. Our breath can go that shallow and that slow. Our muscles feel very heavy so that people will think that we're mad at them when it's, no, like I'm not mad at you. Why would you think that? Well, just because you have this scowl on your face. I do? I didn't know that. It's because our muscles lose their strength with this energy conservation that starts to take over. And it honestly feels hard to even stand up. We will push ourselves through, but if we could, we want to just make it all go away. We want to make it all go away. We would rather curl up into a ball, into the fetal position, pull the covers over our head, and make that just go away.
This all makes so much sense to me in all of these different steps. And I'm sure that all of us have been in each and every one of these many times throughout our lives. And we're going to talk about what to do with this information in a couple minutes. But one of the important pieces that really stood out to me is this key concept to understand your inner world and your trauma biology. And you call that neuroception. Can you explain the concept and how does this impact our nervous system?
Neuroception is one of my favorite things to talk about.
It's a huge piece of this puzzle.
It really is, because it's the background calculation of danger versus safety. And it's calculating not just black and white, am I safe? Am I in danger? But to what degree am I in danger? So that it is the conductor of my inner orchestra for what state I will be in. We have three inner states. I liken this to a car. If we have cruise control, this will be the parasympathetic. People may know it by rest and digest. It's where we feel calm and yet alive. And in this state, we are always in our best health, in our best self. But then we have this stress mode. In the car, it would be the sport mode. And this is where you are giving it gas because you need to get somewhere. And it's a high performance state. Our body depends on neuroception to tell us when we need to be in a high performance state, when that actually would be the best thing for our survival, given the danger that we sense. But there's another level of danger. There is the level of danger that feels like an inescapable life threat. Inescapable. We're back at the wall. The wall is that moment where there's nothing I can do. So that is inescapable. I cannot escape this. But it's not just inescapable, because if we were surrounded by love and affection and support, why would we want to escape? So it's the inescapable danger that's at the level of my life feels like it's under threat. Now, we'll circle back to what threat that can be, but at that level of danger, our neuroception, again, the conductor of the orchestra, says, we need to play a different song right now. It's a different song than the high performance song. This song is the doom and gloom song. This song is the one where we are going to play dead and play nice. We are going to give in and give up. This is the song of surrendering, because this is our best chance at surviving. But I don't see any hope. I don't know how we're going to get through this. And so we're just going to dim everything and hibernate until hopefully the danger passes and we can come out.
So, question here. So, with this perceived danger, that can go all the way back to something that was triggered when you were 5, right? And so how do you start to put these, again, these pieces together to understand that you can get into a safe mode?
Exactly. So our neuroception is like the dashboard on the car to tell us which state we should be in any given moment. And where is that information coming from that's on the dashboard? In our car, it's coming from the gas tank and how much gas do we have? It's coming from the oil and how much oil do we have? How clean is it? It's coming from our tires and what's the pressure in the tires? So neuroception is this gathering of all the information. What's important for people to know is that it's gathering information not only from outside of us. What's that person doing? What's happening over there? What's that sound? What's that? What do I hear? But it's also gathering information from inside of us. How bad is that inflammation? How much toxins are we carrying? How many nutrients do I have? What's my magnesium level? It's gathering all of this information from outside of us and inside of us. And then you reference the childhood. And this is where it's a filter. So all of this information is now put through this filter of our past. And it's asking, does any of this seem like it might be a danger? And that's how it knows. And when we've had a childhood where if we didn't know what was going to happen, that was dangerous for us. We needed to know what was going to happen in order to be able to be okay, in order to be able to control the situation a bit or get out of danger. Well, what if that's the information coming into our neuroception right now? There's this thing happening over here and I don't know what's going on. That not knowing through our filter of our childhood says that means that's dangerous. So our past creates the filter through which all of this information comes through to decide what's dangerous, what's not, what's a cue of safety versus what's a cue of danger. Because someone smiling at me might be a cue of safety for me, but for you in your childhood, someone smiling at you might have meant that they were going to target you for sexual abuse. And so that same smile for you is a cue of danger because of the filter that we have in place.
Yeah, I'm so speechless right now because it's so deep and so real, and it does go down to that cellular level that we don't talk about in Western medicine. And we try to treat things going on with ourselves with pills, and we pop this pill and pop that pill, instead of really, and there are times when that is very necessary, don't get me wrong. However, there's so much that you're saying, Dr. Aimie, that leads me to believe that if we took, hold of your book and started to identify some of those triggers that we have, some of our childhood traumas, some of our traumas from high school or wherever that trauma came from, that we could start healing in a way that has been relatively undiscussed until now.
And that's the hope, right? That's the hope that we can change the filter. We're not stuck with the
Yes.
filter that we've always had. It won't happen just by itself, and it won't happen just over time. It takes intentional, deliberate work to change the filter, but we can change the filter. And when we change the filter, we're able to create a filter that sees more safety in the world, that has a more accurate perception of what actually is a danger and what I do need to respond to and what I want to respond to. And when no, like it's actually safe to feel safe right now. And most people who have a chronic health condition, or they have relationship issues ongoing, they have these patterns, they will recognize that it hasn't felt safe to relax. They feel the need to stay bracing and guarded. That's their filter. Their filter tells them, we never know when the next danger is coming. So it's never safe to relax. And no wonder we have sleep problems. No wonder we have anxiety problems. No wonder we emotionally eat. This is how we are just regulating all of the cues of danger that are coming in, and we're bombarded and really feeling like we're in survival mode. And it's become our normal. So we don't even know to label it as such. This is our normal. And people ask us, well, how are you? I'm good. And we paste the smile. I'm fine. I'm okay. Because this has just become our normal level of stress. I'm just at the normal level of stress, not realizing really it's the stored trauma that's creating so much of our ongoing stress. And part of the work will be to look at, how can I do a reset of my mind? How can I do a reset of my body? How can I do a reset of my biology? And then that's how we change the filter that will give us a different perception of our reality.
Yeah, and we'll be talking. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll share this quickly because this is such an important point that many people miss around stress versus trauma. The amount of adrenaline that we secrete every day is in direct proportion to the size of the danger that we see. And in looking at people and how much adrenaline is just fueling their activities, between the caffeine that we drink, between the foods that we eat that are actually creating adrenaline, to the stress that we sometimes create for ourselves or are exposed to. We have so much adrenaline going every day, and that's not being discharged. It's so much. And so this is where things get stored, and realizing that it has so much to do with my perception of the danger, not reality. It's my filter.
Wow, that's such good information for everyone to hear. So Julie said, oh my God, my whole world is unknown right now. No wonder I feel like my whole body is threatening to kill me.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Julie. So with all of these ideas surrounding trauma, what can people do to acknowledge it, make change, and live a better, more fulfilled life? Does it have, I know nutrition plays a role, so let's go into all of these steps that people can take to feel better and to look at their trauma so they can live a more fulfilled life.
Yes. So we will need to look at all the levels that trauma impacts, and we will want to, what I call, repair. And this is such an important concept that even when we make a mistake, we can repair. We don't need to be perfect. We can repair things that we do wrong or that we have damaged. We can repair. So we will need to repair on all the levels, even down to our biology. So I'm going to share with some people some unexpected things that they can be doing that will actually help reset their filter and their perception of danger. A lot of this sense of danger is now coming from our own biology. And the longer that we have held our trauma, the more oxidative stress it has created, the more it has shut down our detoxification system. So the more toxins that we're carrying, the more it has impacted our digestive system. And so these are aspects where we want to look at what is going on in my health. And oxidative stress is not something that you would normally know to look at. And taking antioxidants, eating foods high in antioxidants is one of the ways that you can repair the damage from stored trauma. Foods that are high in antioxidants. Yeah, blueberries and broccoli. Let's go with the B's. Blueberries and broccoli are some of the best ones. They not only are antioxidants, but they help our detoxification system. Pomegranates and things with bright colors are often also antioxidants. But if we really want to go simple, take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day. Vitamin C, it's simple, it's easy, it's inexpensive, and this can be one of the best gifts that you can do for your body to say, I see the burden that you've been carrying for so long. Let me help lift that burden for you. And we can do that even through something as simple as vitamin C. Now, we will want to get labs and look at some of our other nutrients. We want to check our vitamin D levels, check our vitamin B levels, because the longer that we've had stored trauma, the more it has depleted us of these cellular nutrients. Well, when we are in a state of depletion, is that not a cue of danger? And so getting our labs can be another gift that we can do for ourselves to look at how can I support my body? How can I support my body at a cellular level? And when we support at the cellular level, other layers start to open up as well. Now it becomes easier to do that trauma work, the therapy side of things, because at the cellular level, we have the energy to do it. Trauma work takes energy. Trauma work takes energy. If you don't have energy, it's not the right time yet.
And with the blood labs, like I have mine done twice a year. What do you recommend?
Twice a year is great. Twice a year is a good rhythm to get into because it allows us to make adjustments before things get too off and yet not be caught into that obsession around our labs and checking it even more frequently. So twice a year is a great rhythm to have.
Okay. And then I think what's so interesting about what you're saying is that the body does have the ability to heal. You know, your body can heal and it can also help here because when you are feeling great and energized and like yourself, there kind of everything starts coming together. Would you say yes to that?
100% yes. And we can't heal on empty. And so this is where we come back to the idea that the body is designed to heal itself. If it has not been able to do so, it's because it just hasn't had what it needs. There's something blocking it. There's something depleting it. And it's waiting for that. And then it will be able to continue on its healing process. Again, I think back on my days as a surgery resident, when I would make the skin incision for the surgeries that I was doing. Did that person need to go to therapy to talk about healing this wound? No, we provide the right conditions. Needs to be dry, needs to be clean, needs to have nutrients. And then the body is like, I know how to heal this. And it would heal up a skin incision. Isn't that trauma? Completely breaking the skin. So this is the same way in which our body can go through something that's overwhelming at the time. It breaks us at the time. And when provided with the environment and the nutrients and the resources that it needs, it can do the healing process. We don't even need to control that, which is quite the relief, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, our bodies are incredible. So you talk about there's 4 levels of reset, the first being the biology cellular level. What does that mean? And we'll go through the next 3 as well.
That means that at the cellular level, our cells are in a state of fear. And they never got the message that the danger is over. So they are still programmed to be living as if we are in danger. And so a reset needs to happen at the biology level so that we can go from a biology of trauma to a biology of safety.
Okay, and your next one is the biology system level reset.
The system level refers to the digestive system, the immune system, the cardiovascular system, the endocrine system. We have all of these systems. So now we're not just talking about the cell level, we're talking about the system level. And our systems are intimately connected with our nervous system. The immune system takes a big hit. And so we will need to repair at the immune system level. The digestive system takes a big hit. That will need to be repaired. And when we can do the reset and repair at the system level, then it allows the nervous system to be receiving those messages of, we're safe, we're good, rather than these messages from the systems of, we're in chaos over here, we're hurting, we're in inflammation, because those will be reasons for us to stay stuck in our trauma, because they become our cues of danger.
So do you think that autoimmune disease rates have increased substantially over the years because of the lack of awareness around how the trauma impacts our body?
I've been watching the trends of autoimmunity, and it's
a huge issue.
huge issue. And it really especially shows up in high functioning women. And autoimmunity,
And why is that?
autoimmunity is the epitome of a biology of trauma that says it has not been safe to be the real me.
Wow. That's kind of mind-blowing.
I've had to try to be someone else.
Mhm.
I've been told that I'm not enough. So I show up, I put a mask on. I don't let people see this other side of me. I hide that from people. If they saw that, they wouldn't like me. They would leave me. That's the epitome of autoimmunity, which is why when someone gets diagnosed, I had autoimmunity as well. That was my turning point for realizing I've got to do my own trauma work. Know that that's been part of your story, that there's this idea that we will need to do the biology piece and the trauma piece. If we only do the biology piece, we're only working on the downstream effects. We're not looking at what's creating the flood that's happening downstream. And part of that, we'll need to be looking at our attachment, our early life, when were we first told, whether with words or not, that it was not okay to be the real us.
Well, as Dr. Jane says, I haven't been safe to be me. So thank you for that quote. So the next reset is the somatic level. Can you explain what somatic means to our audience? And then also, what does it mean to reset it?
Somatic is an often neglected aspect of stored trauma in the body. And yet it's one that I have found when I can teach some somatic self practices to my patients, it's what shifts their inner biology state the fastest. So somatic means the body, soma. Soma means the body, the tissues. And what happens is that when we have experiences where we are helpless, where we've hit the wall, and there was nothing we could do to stop that bad thing from happening, our muscles get programmed to not respond. It's actually called learned helplessness. Those of us who are high functioning, we don't like to think that we have learned helplessness. So we don't like to look at that. But this element then that our memory, we have a memory that's implicit in our body and our tissues that says, you know, that's too big for me. I wouldn't be able to respond. I wouldn't be able to overcome that. It's better for me just to go into overwhelm. And that's a tissue memory. It's a body memory. So we work at the somatic level with different elements. One would be, we can use the somatic self practices to start to create a moment of a felt sense of safety. And once we have these skills where we can create our inner safety and then stay there, then we can go and work on stories in the past where we are not going to relive all of those emotions without being able to resolve them. I don't want people going to work on their childhood or previous stories without the ability to resolve it, because otherwise we just relive it. And we resolve it a lot through the somatic work, where we then look at, what would I have wanted to do if someone attacked us, for example? What would I have wanted to do? Oh, I would have wanted to punch. I would have wanted to kick. Okay, then do that. Whatever it is that you wanted to do then, do that now. And that's how we can actually reprogram and resolve an experience from the past without reliving it when we have these somatic skills. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating because you can't get triggered again and again and again over the same topic, right? That's happened way back when. And then all of a sudden the trauma hits you again. You're like, oh my God, here we go again. So being able to have that tool would be incredibly helpful. And then the fourth is a reset of our beliefs and parts, which you talked about a little bit, but could you explain how we might be able to do that a little deeper?
Yes.
It's a
So
deeper level.
when we go through experiences where we were all alone and it was overwhelming, we form beliefs about ourselves. We form a belief that, I'm actually quite weak. I'm too sensitive. I'm too much. I'm not enough. I'm unlovable. We can have a long list of beliefs that we hold about ourselves. And to be able to work with that in a way that says, it's actually not all of me that believes that. It's just a part of me. And this allows me to even say, there's a part of me that feels lonely. It's not all of me, but there is a part of me. And then I can work with that part in a way where I'm now showing up for myself rather than waiting for someone else to show up for me. See, we cannot wait any longer for someone else to come and create our safety. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. And we do this through working with our beliefs, through this idea of there's a part of me that believes that. There's a part of me that feels that. And I can come in and be that safe place for that part and give them a witness, give them a different experience so that they can work with me and no longer self-sabotage me because they don't think that I can do hard things, as an example.
Acknowledging is a huge piece of this. And again, giving yourself the gift of time to to understand ourselves, to be introspective, to acknowledge, and to go through some of the processes that you've talked about today. We want to take people from healing to living and living beautifully. What other messages of hope do you have for someone dealing with trauma like Julie and exhausted by chronic health issues? So let's talk about healing to living and messages of hope.
Yes, healing to living. The healing journey is the process of opening ourselves back up to life, to connection, to love. It's not actually about becoming someone new. It's really about returning to who we really are, discovering who we really are, since most of us don't even know that. And how do we do that safely? That's the process of befriending our body so that now it's a conversation and I'm not forcing my body to open up this inner pain faster than what it feels capable of. And then it becomes a dance and a friendship. And actually, the best healing relationship is the one that I form with myself. And then we look at all the things that we can do for ourselves every day, because healing happens in moments, not in marathons. You don't need to go to these big intensives to have healing. No, healing happens in moments. I call them micro moments of safety, micro moments of self-compassion, micro moments of, can I allow myself to feel this, whatever it is that I have not wanted to feel, but just a little bit, because I know if I opened it all up, that would be too much. But what if I could just allow myself to feel a little bit? So that's why I say healing happens in these micro moments. Don't wait until the big thing. Do a micro moment of giving yourself permission to feel scared, rather than trying to pretend that you don't feel scared when you actually really do. So that we can't think our way to safety. We have to create that in ourselves and inside of ourselves.
I just love what you said, befriending our body, being our true self. And what does that mean to so many of us that are here today that have put on these masks over the years to, be in the corporate world or one of the reasons why I originally started Rebel 11 was like, who are we as our true self? And that's such an important question. And I love healing our relationship with our bodies and with ourselves, and being kind to them, having compassion towards ourselves. We so often don't do that. And that's such a beautiful invitation, Dr. Aimie. I really, really love that. Dr. Jane, yep, masks keep us separate from ourselves also. And that's so true. I am pretty much blown away by this conversation, and I'm so grateful that you wrote your beautiful book, The Biology of Trauma, and that we're starting to talk about how trauma is held in the body and how it does cause dis-ease at so many different levels. If you have further questions, please write them here. We have a few more minutes. But in the meantime, will you tell us, Dr. Aimie, about some of your offerings?
Yes. I love to educate. I am an educator at heart. And so I have a platform, have a Biology of Trauma podcast, and have Biology of Trauma courses. And in fact, I start everyone with what I call a 6-week foundational journey, where I teach you these somatic and inner child exercises for people to learn how to create their own inner safety and to befriend their body, since that's clearly the first step that many people need to take.
Yes. So we have a couple of questions. So how do you determine what symptoms mean when no medical reason can be found? I think
What a
that
great question.
it's a great question. So go ahead, Dr. Aimie. What do we do?
Well, Joni, one of the things that I'm thinking would be helpful for them is the roadmap that you showed earlier, the steps to identify and heal trauma. This is how we identify it. That's where we have to start, right? Is actually being able to identify, does this mean something deeper? Is this a pattern to something deeper? And that's how we know, because otherwise, how could we know? So we're looking for a pattern. There are 5 patterns. I cover that in chapter 9 of my book, 5 patterns, and they show up in all areas of our life, which is why they are a pattern. And so being able to look at especially symptoms when no medical reason can be found is always going to be nervous system driven. Remember, our nervous system is the conductor for the orchestra. So it will tell all of our systems what state to be in. Are we in a healthy state? Are we in a performance state? Are we in shutdown state? And so if our symptoms are ones that, there's no clear medical reason, even if there is a clear medical reason, it still affects and thus is going to contribute to nervous system dysregulation. And that's what we want to address, so that no matter what condition or health issue we have, we can still be in our best health.
Yeah, that's a deep question, and I'm so glad you asked that. So thank you on that. And then Barbara asked thoughts on breath work, and is that helpful in, obviously it is with our nervous system, but how else can that benefit our bodies and our mind?
Yeah, what a great question, Barbara. And I do have got lots of thoughts, lots of opinions. And I will, rather than share opinions, I will share some experiences. And breath work is something that we are deciding how we want our breath to be. Do we want our breath deeper? Do we want our breath to be slower? But we're making a conscious decision and then changing our breath to be what we want. When actually, our breath is exactly where it is supposed to be right now. Our nervous system determines our breath. And if it says we are in so much danger right now, we should barely breathe, well, then there's a wisdom to that. There's a reason why it would say, this is what's best for me at this time. So once we bring in our conscious logical brain, we're no longer looking at our breath being a way that we can measure and know what state am I in right now. So I use my breath, and I teach people to use their breath as a means of information. What state are you in right now? You can tell that by your breath. And if you are in a state where you're like, yeah, this actually isn't the state that I want to be in right now. I want to be in that calm, alive state. Okay, then use your somatic skills to shift your state, which will then shift your breath. But when we shift our breath, it will not necessarily shift our state. And sometimes we create that misalignment where, again, we're coming in and we are telling our body, here's what I want you to do. You have to listen to me. And it's not a friendship. It's not a communication. It's not a togetherness with our body. And so we're still creating the same dynamic where I'm trying to force myself, my body, to do something that it doesn't want to do. Whereas if I can come in and use my breath as information, this is what my breath means right now. I want to shift my state because I can tell from my breath that I'm in a place of fear. Okay, let me shift my state, and then I'm using my breath to tell me, I've shifted my state. You'll get a spontaneous deep breath as opposed to a conscious choice deep breath. Those are two very different things. And also, one other thing, there is so much emotion that is stored in our gut. Our breath goes as deep as it feels safe to go into those emotions. And so when we come along and we say, no, I want us to do breath work, I want us to do these deep breaths or whatever it is, we may be tapping into emotions in our gut that we are not ready for. We don't have the skills to feel the intensity of those emotions, and our body's trying to protect us. So again, I am much more in favor of befriending our body, working with our body, trying to understand why would my breath be slow and shallow, and not just then forcing the change, but inviting the safety that creates the change.
That was a great answer. And I was going to ask you, my last question for today is, do you recommend any other rituals for our audience to think about? And what are those?
There are lots of rituals. And in fact, rituals by themselves communicate safety to our nervous system. So that's why it's helpful to have a bedtime ritual. It's helpful to have a morning ritual. A ritual communicates safety to our nervous system. So let's talk about some of these rituals. What if our morning ritual could be we get outside in nature?
Absolutely,
even if
every
it's
day.
Cloudy, even if it's cloudy, get out into the natural light before you turn on your phone, before you have screen time. Just the bright lights and the type of lights that are on screens, that's a cue of danger to our nervous system. It's a stress to our nervous system. So we want to resource ourselves more than how we're stressing ourselves And that's how we can stay with a good enough capacity to be our best selves.
Okay, that is an invitation for all of us to get out in nature before we turn on our phones, which I've got that switched around, I have to say, but I do get out in nature every day. But I love the idea that ritual gives our nervous system something to rely on. So if you can, come up with your 3 rituals, maybe your morning, your noon-ish time frame, and something in the evening, that would definitely help our bodies be safe. So Dr. Aimie, I can't thank you enough for your beautiful book. I've enjoyed it so much, and it's something that I've thought a lot about over the years. So I'm so happy that you have brought that into the world. And just so you know, everyone, it's been #1 on Amazon in the trauma area, or is it for
Yeah,
the
trauma
last couple of
psychology.
days? Yeah, it just launched today. And so congratulations. I wish you the most incredible journey as you launch and share your amazing research and stories with more people.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Rebel 11 today.
And thank you all for being here, and thank you for what you do, Joni.
Thank you, Dr. Aimie. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks everyone for being here.